I just spent over 100 hours with the Sony WF-1000XM5 just so you don't have to. And honestly, at the end of it all, I'm beginning to think that maybe you shouldn't. Huh? This sentence is going to make a lot more sense at the end of this video. But in my time with the XM5, I've learned a thing or two about a thing or two. So I'm going to share some tips and tricks on how you can get the most out of it. The most important thing, first of all, is to get the right fit. I cannot stress how much the right fit will enhance both your sound quality as well as your noise cancellation performance. And for that, what you need to do is stand in traffic. Actually, stand near traffic somewhere, basically where there's a lot of noise, but there's a lot of continuous noise, preferably of different types, like you can hear right now. And here's what we're trying to do. Step number one, go into your headphones app and actually choose either noise cancelling or off. What we don't want is ambient sound mode. Then you slap on the medium tips onto your XM5 and you put them on. And don't just place them like that. I see a lot of people doing that. No, what you want to do is crunch up the tips a little bit, place it in your ear, thumb the bottom in a little bit just so it's a little bit more snug, and then take the ear tip and rotate it backwards until it's really nicely snug there. And you're looking for two things at this point. Number one is how snug your ear tips are. If it's not very snug, if it's a little loose, then you need to upsize one. If it is too snug, if it feels too tight, downsize the ear tips one size. And while you're doing that, you want to listen for how much noise is actually being cut. The better the fit, the better your active noise cancellation performance also gets. But all this should not come at the cost of your comfort. Always make sure you're comfortable. Now, speaking of comfort, that's where we run into our first problem. The hybrid foam tips that come with the XM5 have come with the last two generations, and every generation they've changed in size, shape and even material. Both for isolation as well as comfort, the foam tips that come with the XM5 just don't seem to do it, which means at this point I'm going to recommend you use third-party tips, and I really don't want to do it because this is a $300 device. You shouldn't have to splurge for tips, but the fact is my experience got a whole lot better when I got some memory foam tips. What can I say? Okay, so now you've got the right fit. Next thing you want to enjoy is the noise cancelling, right? Obviously, that was the whole point, but what's that? You get a phone call and the other person's having a little bit of trouble understanding you. Well, the best way to get around that is use your phone. Honestly, just stop using the XM5. I have the full microphone quality test on my original review video and you can go check that out. Listen, just forget I said anything. Hello? He hung up on me. That could be a problem. That could be a problem. It's just bad. Whenever there's a little bit of noise, the amount of noise you're listening to right now, if someone was calling me, they wouldn't be able to understand what I'm saying. And I know I have a virtuous ability to drop mumble rap verses on a whim, but I swear it isn't that. It's just that the XM5 is just not very good at it. So my best advice to you would be to turn off Bluetooth and just take the call like you normally would. But of course, that's not really a problem if you're anything like me and you don't really have friends that call you. Noise cancelling though, that's a different deal. Now, the Sony is known for noise cancelling, and honestly, I've measured it. Again, in my original review video, I've got those measurements. You can go check it out. And it is the second best thing I have measured on the market. However, noise cancelling is not just about cancelling the most noise, it's also where you cancel the noise. And with the XM5, unfortunately, while it does a supreme job of cancelling out the mid and the high frequencies, when it comes to low mid frequencies and lower frequencies, it does seem to let some of it through. And here's the thing, Sony is capable of it because this very earbud actually does cancel that out in another mode. So here's a little hack. Go into ambient sound mode and set the slider to 1. And what this does is set that as default. So when you one tap your left ear, it changes noise cancelling to ambient sound mode 1. And what you get effectively is two different levels of noise cancelling.
So I've been using the XM5 and also right. Honestly, I've been using ambient sound 1 because it actually cancels out more bass frequencies. I'm really hoping they sort this out because noise cancelling works in some situations, but if they can have more noise cancelling in ambient sound 1, they can do it on the noise cancelling mode as well. And I hope they fix this with a firmware update, but for now, it's good to have both options.
And it actually cancels out more bass frequencies, but it allows some of those higher frequencies through, which is still a lot nicer sounding than just listening to those aircraft engines all the time. But then I hear you asking, what about other ambient sound modes? What if I want ambient sound 15 or 20? And what if I want a different gesture to be able to control that? And it sounds like you want to start messing around with the app. Now the next thing you probably want to do is get the most out of your earbuds. You've got an app with a lot of features to play with, and honestly this is one of the good things about the XM5. The app, the features it comes with is mostly ecosystem agnostic, which means it doesn't matter if you're an Apple user, if you're an Android user, you'll get most of the features. The exception to that is head tracking and spatial audio, because both Apple and Samsung ecosystem lock their devices. This is not Sony's fault, this is the respective ecosystem's fault. But the app does have a lot of nifty features. Now it does have the ability to change noise cancelling based on what you're doing, but what's more important to me, when I'm taking my dog out for a walk in the evening, I like to set a radius around the park to go into transparency mode, so I have full awareness of what's happening, and this does work quite well, and I would recommend you set up some zones like that, because the advantage of doing that is that you overcome the shortcomings of the touch control systems. Another downside of the XM5 is that the touch controls, they're not fully customizable. There's just a minimal level of customization, and because of that, you can't tie a gesture in with a certain level of noise cancelling or anything like that. Well, you can with the geolocation. You can tell it to go into ambient sound 15 when you're near a park, and maybe ambient sound 1 when you're moving on a bus. You can do that, and it works pretty well, so I would really urge that you use this function. Now in the sound tab, there's a few interesting options, but I would recommend you don't use them. For example, speak to chat. It doesn't really work that well, and honestly there's a much better way to do this. Just hold your left earbud for a couple of seconds and there you go, it's gone into ambient sound mode. I'm having a conversation with someone, remove, and it goes back to normal mode. That is a much better way to do it than speak to chat, because if you're watching a video and then you laugh out loud at something, I actually said laugh out loud, wow. If you laugh, then it goes into transparency mode, and it's really annoying when you're in a noisy environment. Then there's the equalizer and a find your equalizer. Okay, I've got the entire find your equalizer map, every option, what kind of EQ it does, and I'm not going to bore you with any of that because honestly the end result is kind of meaningless. Now obviously you also want the best sound quality. The way you get that is you leave everything as is, because the sound quality out of this is pretty darn good. It is tuned really well. However, I still think there's something about the XM4, its predecessor, that was a little bit better. Luckily, I have a way for you to get the XM4 sound pretty much on the XM5. You've got the equalizer, go into the equalizer, take the bass down a notch or two depending on how neutral you want it. Take the 1K slider down by 1 notch and the 2.5K slider down by about 2 notches or so. Leave everything else as is and you basically get a more XM4 sound. What does that mean? Well, it means the sound is not quite as in your face. Vocals seem to take a little bit of a backstage and they make everything sound a little more relaxed and a little more spacious. And I know it's not a huge EQ change, but sometimes it's the small adjustments that make all the difference. Now I want to go on about the features, but there's a whole bunch more. There's the head gestures, which allows you to reject a call like this, except it doesn't really work very well, so I wouldn't recommend you use it. But in the midst of all that, there is one feature that is quite nifty. When you're taking a phone call, you now get to pipe in ambient sound, so you get to hear your voice a little better instead of the muffled voice you usually hear when there's active noise cancellation and you're on a phone call. Some people prefer to hear their own voices. Well, now you can. Okay, so you're done with the app, you've got everything dialed in the way you want it, but you forgot to charge the battery. And now it's running out, just like your Amazon return window. Well, fear not, because the XM5 actually has fast charging and it's really fast. But you guessed it, there are two issues here. Number one, when the battery is running down on each earbud, it actually runs down at different rates, which sounds absurd but is true, and it's not a small difference, it's a big difference. You still get 4.5 to 5 hours of battery, and that's with LDAC running with active noise cancellation on, so good battery life. But when you get down there, one earbud will have 15, maybe 20%, and the other one will be at 0, and that is just unacceptable. Luckily, you can fast charge them. The problem is that even if both earbuds are run down to 0, they even fast charge at different rates, which is absurd to me. So you can't charge it for just 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. So here's what you do. If you charge for around 8 minutes, at that point, both earbuds rise to approximately 50% charge, plus or minus 3%, which is relatively okay. any less than about 7-8 minutes, and there's a big imbalance between them. This is what I've found in my uses. So yes, you have fast charging, but always make sure that you at least charge it for about 8 minutes, and then you'll get about 2.5 hours of playtime out of it, which is great. Even more if you're using an iPhone, or if you're using AAC or some other lower energy codec. Is it right for a $300 flagship device to be behaving like this? Absolutely not. But now at least you know how to get around it. And there you have it, the XM5 tips and tricks video. Now the thing is, this started off as a tips and tricks video, and I thought I'd make a comprehensive list, but as I went down I realized that anything I had to offer was only to counteract the flaws of the device, and there are just too many flaws. The microphone quality on phone calls being the biggest one. I just can't get around it. There's no way to make it better, and I just don't use it anymore. The noise cancelling isn't as good as it should be, and because of its lopsided way of handling the frequencies, it doesn't even sound like it's doing a great job. And while I do love the sound quality, and I do love the fact that it is ecosystem agnostic, and as long as the ecosystem allows it, you can get all the features everywhere, which is a lovely thing, I can't get over the fact that a $300 device doesn't allow you to customize your touch controls the way you want it, or doesn't give you a comprehensive touch control system that does everything for you. And I absolutely cannot believe that I have to recommend that people look into buying third-party ear tips after spending $300 on a device. These are just too many red flags, and I think the XM5 is a little bit of a misstep. I think Sony is concentrated on sprucing up certain things, like they have made things better. The ergonomics of it compared to the XM4 seem to be better in that they've made everything smaller while still keeping battery life, but you saw what happened to the battery drain, and you've heard the microphone quality. And if you read the forums, even the noise cancelling is giving people reason to pause. I have to say, Sony kind of messed up this time around. We'll just have to wait until the next one to see if they fix it. Till then, you might want to hit that subscribe button. Only if you like channels that tell it like it is though. It's up to you. Till next time, stay happy, stay peaceful, stay colorful. Namaste.